Army Lieutenant Colonel and former Judge Advocate General, or JAG officer. He's now a law professor at Ohio Northern University. Great to have you on the BBC. What did you make of what we heard there from lawmakers Thursday, and what details stood out to you when it comes to the way this specific boat strike or strikes were carried out?
So I have to disagree with Senator Cotton. Firstly, he said, continue the fight. There is no fight. The basic fundamental flaw with the Defense Department's reasoning, the administration's legal justification here, is that we are in some kind of armed conflict with these drug cartels, which we're not. There's a definition of that in international law. This isn't that. This is a police action. It should be a police action because they're violating criminal law. So they should be treated like suspected criminals. So any attack, whether it was a double tap or not, is breaking the law. These are not lawful targets. The second strike on these suspected narco-terrorists, again, there are assumptions being made here about their destination. He said to the U.S. We don't know that they're going to the U.S. We don't know what was on the boat. None of that has been released. These videos are not publicly released either. So if you have two people on a ship that it gets blown up and they're clinging to the side of the ship, whether they are bin Laden, whether they are a drug kingpin, whether they are a low-level drug runner, they are out of the fight. They pose no threat to anybody, lethal, which means police officers couldn't use lethal force against them, even if they were potentially even fleeing. Nor could the military use lethal force against them if this were an armed conflict. Yeah. So no matter how you slice it, no matter what law paradigm you're under, this strike was unlawful. Now, Tom Cotton.
Let me just jump in here because it seems like there's a couple of different issues. One, whether or not the United States is at war with what the Trump administration alleges are narco-terrorists operating these boats, and then the other is the legality of this action, in the first place, irregardless of that. But I'm curious what you think. I mean, we heard some lawmakers essentially saying, Secretary Hegseth didn't give this order. I think the secretary himself says this basically exonerates him. Where do you see any kind of responsibility in the chain of command lying for what allegedly did take place?
Well, what I'm hearing from the White House and from the Secretary of Defense is a lot of blame shifting. We've heard President Trump basically say, "I wasn't aware of any of this going on. I trust Pete Hegseth." Pete Hegseth says, "I wasn't aware of what's going on. I trust Admiral Bradley." Admiral Bradley says he was never given an order by Pete Hegseth to kill everyone. We don't know what the facts are. This requires and demands proper, thorough investigation by Congress, which they're starting to do, and I applaud that. But we still don't know exactly who said what to whom and what conveyed. But what we do know is that two men, based on the video evidence that has been released, were killed unlawfully. Now, I believe the Admiral has made some reference, at least from the reporting, has made some reference to these men trying to get back on the boat, trying to salvage the boat, trying to communicate with perhaps other cartel members in the area. None of that matters from a legal standpoint. None of that gives anyone lethal authority or any legal authority, to use lethal force against them. Calling for help is not a threat under domestic law, under international law. So again, we need more facts, but what we've seen is patently unlawful.
Just about a minute left. How do you see this in terms of any kind of legal fallout? Could there be any sort of charges if this is deemed unlawful against anybody that was involved?
Theoretically, yes, of course. But under this current administration and the role that the DOJ has under President Trump, it's highly unlikely that we'll see any federal charges being offered, being made against anyone involved, include court-martial charges under the Uniform Code of Military Justice. I just find it highly improbable that will happen. But it doesn't mean nothing unlawful happened. We still need to investigate. We still need to make sure this doesn't happen again.
Dan Maurer, retired Army Lieutenant Colonel, retired Army Judge Advocate General. Thank you very much for your insights. We appreciate it.